Welcome to the H.E.A.L, Help, Elevate, and Learn podcast. This podcast is a guide to healing your inner child and maturing your inner adult. This is the place where we slow down, look within, and begin the journey of restoring what was lost, silenced, or forgotten. Here, we believe that healing the inner child is not about reliving the past, it's about rewriting your future. Together, we'll uncover the wisdom, strength, and the love you've always carried inside. So take a deep breath. You're safe, you're seen, and you're right where you need to be. Hello, everybody. How you doing today? This is Saucony Prince of SauconyPrince.com, where we make motivation personal, introducing you to yourself. And I want to welcome you to the H.E.A.L, Help, Elevate, and Learn podcast. I'm telling you, this podcast has been a blessing to so many people, including myself, because we have an opportunity to talk about those things that really impact us today, but that may have been seeded in our childhood. And I'm super excited because I have a treat for you guys today, and you don't want to miss my guest. Now, yeah, I say guest with an S, my guest for today. But listen, in fact, before we get started, let's thank our sponsor, none other than BetterHelp. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. First, you go to their site. You can use my link, betterhelp.com/SauconyPrinceH.E.A.L. You answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who's had years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. You can do it all from your phone or your computer, via a phone call, a video chat, or messaging. However you feel most comfortable, it is the easiest possible way to start talking to a therapist. You'll be matched to a therapist usually within 48 hours, so you can get started fast. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you, all from the comfort of your own home. Visit betterhelp.com/SauconyPrinceH.E.A.L. or choose Saucony Prince H.E.A.L during your sign up and enjoy a special discount on your first month. And again, we want to thank our sponsor, BetterHelp, for sponsoring this amazing episode of the H.E.A.L podcast. Now, a few minutes ago, I said that we had guests, not one, but two. And they are my good friends, Dr. Charles Dent and Pastor Lord Michael Austin. So let's welcome to the stage, fellas. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you loud.
Cool. Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, you listen. Take a moment and tell everybody who you are and why should they pay attention to what you have to say. I'll let you go first, Dr. Dent.
Okay, I'm Dr. Charles Dent. I don't think any. Okay. So the key word with me is, I am the founder of Max Out Coaching and Therapy and Training. One of the unique things about what we try to do is look at different modalities and getting you the help you need, so that sometimes that you can address these childhood traumas that you may have had as a child and they showed up as your adult life. Now, we do other work as well in our community, pastors in the local church that help people with mental health challenges. And also I'm an author, writer, trainer, facilitator. I love what I'm doing. I'm a husband. I'm a father. And I enjoy every moment being around Dr. Saucony Prince and Pastor Lord Michael Austin.
All right, Pastor Austin, now it's your turn. You have the microphone. Tell people a little bit about
wait, I forgot. I'm also a military vet, Marine Corps vet. Because I didn't want that Army guy to.
I'm not separating y'all again. I'm just gonna let y'all duke it out, okay?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Pastor Lord Michael Austin. I am a United States Army combat veteran. I'm also the pastor of Love Me No Way Ministry. I'm a senior peer support specialist and community outreach ambassador for Vets Recovery. I work in a lot of different areas in the community with our youth. I work with veterans who experience legal issues. I work with people at the hospital going through different traumas. I'm also a mental health first aid instructor as well, and part of the National Men Prayer Call. So just a lot of different areas in the community where we're helping to serve the underserved and just to be a bridge to help people get to what they need to change their lives. And I just love what I do. I'm glad to be a part of this program tonight, and I'm excited.
Yeah, well, I want to thank each of you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me. And now, normally, what I do is I normally have one of the guests on here and we go through a series of questions, but I really wanted tonight to be more of a roundtable. I wanted us, to really talk, and I'm going to use some of our questions as a springboard, but I want us to be able to really just kind of dive into some of the root behaviors that we see. I know Dr. Dent mentioned that he was at a facility and he noticed that one of the things that really kind of kept showing up was they were dealing with childhood trauma. I mean, he saw it almost everywhere he looked. So, Dr. Dent, when you see and when you can recognize that type of trauma or that type of behavior, how do you speak to it in such a way that somebody can actually, you know, understand what's going on, draw the connection between their current behavior and their childhood trauma, and then work to figure that out?
Well, Dr. Prince, that is a difficult process, especially when we are in denial of childhood trauma. Or, yeah, and I think that's what I saw. I saw so many people just sitting in denial of what happened as a child. So I tried to do a genogram of my own family and trying to draw it out of them so they could see how impactful that the childhood trauma has changed their behavior or altered their behavior, that led to some life traps, and they got trapped in them, and it starts showing up in their behavior. So I mean, a very, very tough thing is if I'm sitting acting like I don't need help, or I'm incarcerated and still thinking I don't need help. And I think that's when I started seeing it more. I saw a lot of trauma from childhood trauma, whether it was neglect or abuse, or some things that a child grew up in, a person that grew up in. Because I remember one lady said, "Yeah, I'm 42 and I'm still dealing with childhood trauma, and I got 3 children now." And so, because you remember that, like when we are stuck in childhood trauma, our children grow up in our wombs and they grow up in our trauma, and we try to figure out why their behavior is the way it is because we have yet to address our trauma. So I saw that a lot yesterday, and I was just like, "Wow." I really, I was like, I really want to help them, but they got to realize they need help. They got to ask for help because I can make the phone call for them, but if they don't show up, what good is it?
Yeah. Hey, Pastor Austin, there's some feedback when your mic is turned on, and that's one of the reasons why I kept muting you
Okay.
because I keep getting like this, just kind of static, and I don't know if it's because it's picking up from your actual speakers or whatnot. But that was one of the reasons why
Okay.
and I was
Okay.
getting ready to message you.
I didn't know. I didn't know. I'm
Okay, no,
sorry.
no, 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 that's
Is it
fine.
still there?
Well, I noticed it. I noticed I could hear when I talked, and also when Dr. Dent talked.
Okay.
Uh, but okay, so okay, Pastor Austin, let's talk about a little bit about your experience with how you feel that childhood trauma factors into people's behavior.
Well, I can give you a real life case study, which is my own life. At 6 years old, my mom passed away of a massive heart attack. And as a 6-year-old child, I never got an opportunity to process that trauma. And I just packed it away and just went on and grew up, became a man, but still that childhood trauma played a real role in my life, not knowing how to process it, not grieving her properly, not knowing how to transition from it. And so it caused a lot of negative behavior in my life as well. Went into the military. I was a good soldier in the military. I went to combat. And when I went to combat, I got re-traumatized. I was already pre-exposed to trauma, and then dealing with that and putting all that stuff on top of it just kept piling on and piling on. And once I got to a place in my life where I began to ask for help, one of the things that one of my mentors did, or one of my counselors did, so let's go back to the beginning, where this all began. And it all began with that 6-year-old child. That
Mm,
6-year-old child had became a grown man, but yet and still he was still there. He was still controlling my behavior. He was still controlling my attitude. He was still controlling my language because I never dealt with that child. And that trauma went on for years in my life and caused me a lot of negative things to happen in my life as a result of it. But once I dealt with that childhood trauma, my life changed tremendously when I was able to do that. And this is um, a pull from Dr. Dent. When I was able to face it, trace it, and erase it
Erase
and
it.
replace it,
Yeah.
it changed the dynamics of my life. And
Yeah.
that was stemmed from that 6-year-old child. And what I'm seeing now, reaching a lot of men who are struggling with other issues, substance use, mental disorders, and all of these things. It's a childhood trauma usually that they never dealt with. And so it's very real.
Yeah, oftentimes people have yet to draw that connection and draw that conclusion, between their trauma and what is really actually impacting and affecting them. And so that was one of the reasons why I wrote the book. And it's not that I am an expert in this field, but I dealt enough with it to the point to where it was the burden of responsibility was laid on me in such a way to where I had to write this book to just raise the level of awareness. And like I say on this podcast all the time, I'm not here to end the conversation. I just want to start it because, especially in our community, African American community, and especially African American men, we rarely have opportunities and times and places where we can talk about things that are eating at us and things that are taking up so much space in our life. And so I wanted to change the demographics and the dynamics. If you go on my page, factscornerprince.com/here, and you can look at all of the previous guests I had on my podcast, I would say probably about maybe 70% of them were African American women. There may be another 20% of them were people of, I had some males and some, people of, different, persuasions. But my point is that, in fact, we were woefully underrepresented in this area. And so I definitely want to make sure that I'm doing my part to help raise the awareness of how men need places and safe places, to actually talk. So I know Dr. Dent, he has actually encouraged me to do the sequel to this book, which is entitled Heal, Help, Elevate, Learn, A Guide to Maturing Your Inner Adult. Dr. Dent,
Mm.
I may regret doing this, but I'm gonna just give you free reign to talk a little bit about that because I know with you, I'm gonna have to do like to do in church. I'm gonna have to reel you in and live out. But why is
Well,
go ahead,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No,
Right.
go ahead.
I was gonna say so why is it so important to after we've healed the inner child, why is it so important for us to then go and mature the inner adult?
Now, Sakona, you know that if you sit there, and all of us can sit there and watch people, especially in the faith-based community, seem like they never mature. I mean, seem like it's a constant circling the mountain. It's constantly staying in the wilderness, never ever exiting, creating an exodus. There should be a place that I exit these childhood trauma and mature as an inner adult. So if I don't have an exodus, where does it take place? And I think that's why I think the scripture teaches us that we need to have an exodus. But for us to have an exodus, there got to be someone within ourselves to say, I need a leader to liberate me out of this and bring me out of my own Egypt. Because I've gotten used to it. I have built my life around these traumas or these childhood. Now I react to the same thing because here's the thing: we're getting away from what happened to us to the system that we react to. We're getting away from blaming our families to explain our families. And
Mm-hmm.
for us to get away from blame. So the most powerful emotion is guilt. I mean, when we feel guilty that, I'm stuck here. I'm trapped in these life traps and I'm refusing to do the to face it, trace it, erase it, replace it. I'm refusing to face that my dad was an alcoholic, my mom was this, or my mom was a drug dealer, whatever it was. And then I was born into this. And so the anxiety and the stressors of our family impacts the children. And sometimes the children think it's their fault. And they end up with that childhood trauma or believing having these childhood lies that we have been indoctrinated to, that we don't think we can get any better. And then the worst thing we can do is do a lot of spiritual bypass, and God will. And my brother Austin will say it takes appeal and prayer. We need both of them because, so that we can mature the inner adult. And I realized, and I asked my prayer this morning was, God, I don't want to be the same person tomorrow as I am today. I want something. And so discipleship of the mind needs to take place. Let this mind that was in Christ be also in us. We got to have the mind disciple. The mindset has to change. Do I have this fixed mindset or this growth mindset? If I'm fixed on it, and my brother Austin, we will talk about this quite often. If I'm fixing this tradition and I just believe it this way and I'm right, if I'm saying I'm right and I'm right and you're wrong, that means there's no other pathways. I'm right and every other way is wrong. So if I feel that way, that every other pathway, I'm right and you guys are wrong. So Coney, you and Austin, y'all wrong. So if I feel like I'm right, that means there's only one pathway and there's not multiple pathways. So one thing I learned is there was multiple pathways people came to Jesus. Multiple pathways. Was a woman at a well, was a Syrophoenician woman, whether it was a man, blind man, it was multiple pathways people came to Jesus. So if I believe like, hey, this is the church and we're right, everybody else wrong. Well, hold on a second. Time out a second. Let's mature this inner adult. Let's get to the place that I can sit in silence and be okay with that. Let's get to the place that I can just say, you know what? It's not about right and wrong anymore to me. It's about this perception that we come into this perceived world. Because the only thing you and I and all of us can do is exchange information. It's what I do with that information when it comes to me. When you're talking to me and you say, oh, Dr. Charles did, I think you need to change your mind. And I'm going like, well, that's information, but it's how do I filter that information that you give me? And if I filter and I'm trapped in these childhood trauma, I'm going like, this dude don't know what he's talking about. I don't care what he says. So I understand the ego. All right. So the ego gets in the way of saying, you know what, Charles did? There's something you need to change.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate this because your book is going to be really, really good and impactful, that when you could take these two and look at the child and then look at the adult and ask those questions, am I really maturing?
Yeah. And that really has to be our mindset. I love what you said about the fixed mindset and about the growth mindset, because if we don't put ourselves or position ourselves to grow, we become stagnant, we become stuck, and quite frankly, in fact, we start either we're growing or we're dying. So how we approach life, how we approach these situations. One of my guests, she said, stay curious. Stay curious about. So that's one thing about a child. A child has a level of curiosity that allows him to learn new stuff. But I think at some age we think that we have to stop growing, even emotionally or mentally. Why is it that we are so easy to get stuck in those patterns? I know it's a comfort zone type thing, but if we realize that we're constantly changing, I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago, or 5 years ago, or definitely 20 years ago. The things that were important to me then aren't necessarily important to me now. So being able to mature, being able to grow, being able to put away those childish things and understand that there are opportunities for us to impact and to expand our understanding of who God made us to be and what He has us to do. What are you laughing at?
Pastor Austin can tell you.
Okay, all right. All right, Pastor Austin, go ahead.
Okay. All right, I'm unmuted now. So
Yeah.
we talked about this yesterday in our session about from the Bible, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. When I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, and I reasoned as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. So one of the things that deal with the childhood, the inner child, the troubled child, is that my childhood traumas is my identity. And I was telling Dr. Den on yesterday, like dealing with the death of my mom. One of the reasons why I wasn't willing to let it go because I felt like if I let that go, I would lose her. I would lose her, and I identify myself with that, you know, and that's what a lot of people deal with. And so we never get opportunity to grow up. We never get an opportunity to make that transition from that child, that 6 year old child. I was a child, you know, it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault what happened to my mom, but I took it on as it had to be something because of me. God took her out of her life because of something was wrong with me, but that was not the truth. But that's what I believed for a long time. And no one set me down and explained that to me that it's not your fault. It took years of failure, years of pain and struggle for me to get to a place in my life where God put someone in my life to tell me that. You know, it wasn't your fault. But I was angry at God about it as well. So I wasn't hearing him either and no one else because I was caught up in that. That was my identity. And so that was my badge. And it kept me in that cocoon, if you will. But breaking out of that cocoon, the Bible says, if any man be in Christ, he's a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things become new. And we talked about yesterday what I believe. My reality is based on my belief system. That's why Jesus said we have to believe in him. So what I believe is what I practice in my life. What I believe is how I conduct myself. And until I believe that I'm a new man, if I'm a believe that I've been delivered or healed from this trauma, then I stay stuck in it. And I can't get past it because I believe that this is who I am and this is what defines me. But I found out in my own life that everything that I went through doesn't define me. It's designed to redefine me. And when
And
I
that
get
is
to that point where I realize when people putting people like you, so Coney Prince and Charles Den in my life to help me redefine who I am, not define myself based on what I went through. That's when that things start to change.
Yeah, and that's it, Sakoni. That's the part when that I'm now because the child. Listen, when Paul said, "When I was a child, I spake as a child, act as a child. When I became a man, I put it away the child things." He didn't tell us the process. He didn't. He gave us a nugget. He didn't give us the full script that what it took for him to dismantle the ego as a child. Because we forget that the ego doesn't start when we're adults. Ego started at birth. We got the ego as a child. I got to have it my way. It's going to be my way of the highway. So that ego can be dominating as a child. And so now the child's ego is fighting against the parental's authority. And it can't see. But see, Jesus showed us when he submitted himself to his parents, he brought his ego and I must be about my father's business. Dude, wait a minute. Boy, you better come on home because the ego, and we fail to see the ego in our children, that when they're trying to have this dominant or controlling of this passive aggressive behavior, now if we don't check it, they grow up that way, and that ego is like, it's going to be my way. I'm going to control the situation, I'm going to control the narrative. So when we were talking about, he said, when I was a child, I spake like one. And so if you ask yourself, what is the language of a child? And then you said what one of the things we talk about mental health first aid as well is stay curious. And you say about curiosity. So what is the language of a child? Is it selfish? Is it driven by the needs being met and those needs are not being met? I'm gonna find a way to get it met. I'm gonna find a way to get those needs met. So Paul didn't give us the script about what it was like for him to be a child. It didn't give us a script of the details. Now we can make the assumption based on that text. But then he said, when I became a man, at what point did he become a man? At what point do we become men and women, mature men and women? At what point do we become that? And so one of the things I think when we become that spiritually is when we start recognizing the voice of God. And I think when we understand what it means to be one with God, we're just becoming the John 17 prayer of Jesus. How do we become one? And that when one hurt, we all hurt. When one rejoice, I don't mind rejoicing with you. I'm not, like you said a long time ago, Dr. Prince, not being insecure and being immature because I can't celebrate somebody else.
Yeah.
You said that on numerous occasions. You said, that's a sign of insecurity or immaturity because I cannot honor someone else. I cannot say, Austin taught me about the appeal and the prayer. So Coney brought that book Heal to me. And I go like, okay, dude, let's heal. Let's help elevate and learn. If we can embrace that without feeling threatened by it, I think that's when we start maturing the inner adult.
Well, and that really kind of, in fact, the scripture that just, I think we run past it too quick is love your neighbor as you love yourself. And I think one of the reasons why it's so challenging for us to love our neighbors because we have a problem with loving ourselves. If we don't see our own value, it's hard for us to see the value in somebody else. I remember several years ago hearing, in fact, Richard Pryor, he was doing an exhibition right with Leon Spinks, and he said he was over in the corner, he was punching himself. He said, man, he don't care nothing about me. He over there beating himself up. And that's the reality. We live in a world where people are self-sabotaging them so they can care less about you. But if you ever find somebody who has agreed with God about their own value, who sees their own value, they can see value in other people. And they can be willing, and see that's where that maturity comes in. Because again, in fact, and oh man, so the buzzword emotional intelligence,
Mm,
the emotional aspect of it is that child, it's the ego, it's everything that is me and my. But the intelligent aspect of it is like, okay, it can't just be all of that. How can we have that balance? And that's why I love this concept about not only healing the inner child but maturing the inner adult, because the inner adult, it doesn't just completely forget about my needs or set myself afire to keep somebody else warm, but it's like, how can I take care of myself as well as take care of others? Again, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And so, starting with that understanding, that self love, and not a selfish, but
mm,
a love that is going to allow me to serve and to do what is needed to help make the world a better place. And that's one of the reasons why I've been so passionate about my slogan. I'm Sakoni Prince of SakoniPrince.com, where we make motivation personal. We're introducing you to yourself because a lot of people really don't know who they are. They don't know what they have. They don't know how they've been blessed to be a blessing. And so that's my goal. And it's not just inside the four walls of a church or a religious organization, but in life itself. Everybody has something to offer. All of us
yeah.
have something that we can actually pour into somebody else. The question is, do you see it? Like I've said in my sizzle reel, you need to value your value and see what value your value brings. That means, first of all, you acknowledge it for what it is that God has given you to do, but then see how that's a help to somebody else. Because it's not just for us. Our fruit is not just for us. The fruit isn't for the tree, but God gives it to us for us to give away. But if we don't see how hungry people are around us, we'll
Mm,
keep our fruit to ourselves. And I can't do that because God has allowed me to see how many people are just hurting. They are dealing with their own torment, their own trauma from their
mm,
child, but they don't recognize it as that. Well, that's just the way I am. Why? It's not what you do, but why. And I tell people, if you never understand the what, you'll keep repeating it. If you never understand the why, you'll keep repeating the what.
mm,
So my thing is to help people to come to a conclusion that there's some work that needs to be done.
mm,
In order for me to get better, I have to be intentional.
mm,
There's a difference between something that's growing in the wild and something that is being catered, or something that's being tailored, or something that's being gardened, or something that's a part of an orchard. It's being worked on, it's being tilled and fertilized, and weeds being plucked, it's being watered, and All these other type things are done so that it can have a maximum harvest as opposed to something that's just out there just on its own. And that's what a lot of people are. So my hope with this podcast, with this book, and even with these conversations is to help people to become intentional about working on themselves so that they can be the best version of themselves. You know, you owe it to yourself to be the best version of you, and you owe it to those people around you to be the best version of yourself. Because if you don't understand that, then you'll just go somewhere and shrink. You'll go somewhere and sit in a corner and not do anything worthwhile. But see, I love being around fellas like Pastor Noah Michael Austin and Dr. Charles Dent because they help me, they reinforce what God has put in me. They help me to
Uh,
understand what.
yeah. Because like we hang out too often. We like peas in a pod. Like we'll be on the radio tomorrow afternoon, or
Yes, we will.
here in
Yes, we will.
Mobile.
Unchanged
So
minds.
yeah, so here's the thing, everybody, that Saucony is really, really, it's really his passion for us, and then like Austin will tell you, we really like to see black men in this space returning back, like when I did the Unchained Mind, I talked about fathers returning back to their children. I mean, isn't that what we ought to be doing? We ought to find a way. And I said, fathers who are coming out, you've been incarcerated and everything, give kudos to the women or the women who've been taking care of your children while you've been locked up, while you've been out there doing those things. Give them kudos. Don't come trying to take over. Just give them kudos, blend in, find a way that you can help and assist, but make sure you get the help you need. I mean, Saucony is putting out there. Austin and I, we all of us see this constantly in our community because I don't think you could fix this in a vacuum. I don't think you can just fix one thing and think it's going to shrink up somewhere else. Now, think about this, everybody. Saucony talk about the tree, you talk about the fruit, right? Well, what makes the fruit grow? I mean, it has to have the nutrition, it has to have the nourishment, everything to create the growth of the fruit. So it's not just the fruit growing and that we're plucking from the tree. It has to have the right combination of things, the nutrient, the sunlight, and everything. That's the same thing about healing the inner child. That's the thing about maturing the inner adult. Do I have the right tools? Do I have the skills? Do I have what I need to mature? Now, and I'm gonna say this to everybody who's listening to this. I live with a lot of resentment in me. I mean, I can tell you from my childhood all the way through adulthood, I was living with resentment. Didn't even know the root cause of it. Living with resentment. I didn't like the church. I didn't like how pastors put us out there and just don't build us and just say, go for it. It's like putting us in the midst of a war zone with no gun, or gave me a gun with no ammunition, just no ammo, just saying, figure out yourself. So I had to learn martial arts so I could fight my way through. Okay. But the seriousness about it all is, is that we shouldn't put people in leadership positions, because Austin and I talk about this. You may have been a great worker, but you could have poisoned the water, and now you're a leader and you don't have the skill. So you have to have the skills now to be able to say, I got to address my inner child, man. I got to address these issues. These things have trapped me. It led to drug addiction, sex addiction. It led to all these I mean, I was an addict. These habits I had. If I don't address them, what happened? I continue to mask them. And I continue to try to say, this is not the best version of myself. This can't be the life God wants me to have. So I got to be able to be honest with myself and do an honest self-assessment. Like Saucony was saying, do I really love me? And if I ask myself that question, how do I define love? What does love look like to me? What does love look like when I stand in the mirror and say, Charles Dent, I love me some me? Dude, you just love me some me. And people call you confident, you call you arrogant and stuff. But how many of you understand knowledge does make you confidence? Knowledge gives you confidence. And when you have knowledge, you grow. You feel so good about sharing because it gives you the confidence you need. And then when people look at you, say you're arrogant, you're cocky. No, my ego is in check because I dealt with the childhood, and I know when my child starts showing up, I shut down. Don't want to hear this. I want to hear that. I just leave it alone. Leave it alone. But that's why he's saying, how do we heal this inner child so that we can mature this inner adult. Austin, I know, Sakone, we taking on your podcast.
Okay, and just something that you mentioned earlier, and I just want to go back and do I value the value that I am? Do I see my value? Do I know my worth? And a lot of times we're dealing with identity crisis and we don't know our value. We don't know what we're worth. The Bible says that what profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses soul? So what God is saying here in that verse, that my soul, your soul, his soul, her soul, each individual soul is more valuable to him than the whole world. Or I asked, what will you give in exchange for your soul? And then I thought over the years that his exchange for my soul was just a sinful lifestyle, but no, it wasn't. It was the trauma that I was dealing with. I was exchanging my value for my childhood trauma. I was giving up who I really was meant to be because I was stuck in that vein and I didn't know how valuable I was. I didn't realize that God did not make a mistake when he made Lord Michael Austin. I didn't realize that he didn't make trash or junk. He didn't make a deadbeat dad. He didn't make an alcoholic or drug addict or a crazy combat veteran. He didn't make all of that things when he made me. But because of the trauma keeps telling me over and over again, this is who you are. This is what you stuck with. This is the only thing that you're going to amount to, right? How many times people said in my life, you'll never amount to nothing? How many times I heard that growing up because of the childhood trauma? I was labeled as a bad kid growing up. But once I got to a place and found out that I wasn't a bad kid, I was a hurting kid. I was hurting. And a lot of times it devalues us because we don't understand. We keep identifying with that
Yeah.
trauma. And that's all we know, that's all we see. Until someone can get us to a place to let us understand that you're not what happened to you.
Yeah.
You're not that mistake. You're not that thing. And you can deal with that thing and become who you really are and get your value back. Put the value back in who you are. God invests a lot of us in us. He said, to whom much is given, much is required. When
Right.
God give us life, that's a lot. He's
Yeah.
given us a lot. Every
Yeah.
day we wake up, he's giving us a lot.
Yeah.
But me not understanding that value of how to, value each day that I have on this earth. I don't have a lot of days on this earth, but each one of them is very valuable. What am
Yeah.
I doing with this precious gift of today? Because once it's gone, it's gone. And
Yeah.
then the new day, Dr. Dan and I talked about this yesterday. Each day, being saved in this day, because today is the day of salvation, not yesterday, not tomorrow, but this
Right.
day, to value that and understanding that I'm worth it. I'm
Yeah.
worth it. I'm worth healing. I'm worth deliverance. I'm worth getting to the right people to help me process things inside of me that I don't know. When I go to a doctor, and I got a broken bone. I can't see the broken bone, but they use an x-ray and they know and show me what's going on the inside. I need people on the outside of me to show me what's going on the inside. I heard
Yeah.
Dr. Dan said this, like, we heal in the tribe or the community, but who's in my tribe? Who's in my village?
Yeah.
Who's there to help me?
Yeah.
I'm getting the same old people and the same old negative people in my community telling me the same old negative thing. How am I gonna heal with that? I
Yeah.
gotta be willing to step out of that circle and get to the right people who's gonna help me become who God has already called me to be.
And that
Just
is so, so true. Listen, we have a couple of comments on it. And just if I throw them up on the screen real quick, this is my wife, Yolanda. She says, what love looks like. That's good. She also came back and said, so good, Pastor Austin. So, she definitely chiming in on that. Hey, listen, I know that, this wasn't my typical podcast. And, like I said, I try to keep it between 30 minutes and an hour. I want to thank my special guest. I know if you want to catch more of this, and if you are in the Mobile area, you can tune in to Gospel 900 and 660 AM WGOK at 4 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. listen to Unchained Minds, and we'll have some more information similar to this because, again, we want to make sure that our community is being blessed, that we are speaking to the needs of our community, the mental health needs. And I never thought that I would be doing it. I never thought I would be operating in this vein, but yet and still, this is where God has me right now. And I really love the fact that I'm able to help people to kind of step back and look at themselves in a non-threatening moment and see the areas that they need to work on, because we all need work. All of us, we have areas that we need to grow in, but are we intentional about it? It's not just enough for us to know it, but what are we doing? What type of action steps are we taking? Knowledge is one thing, applied knowledge is another. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you, it's like a picture. And I got to fix. I have to fix this visual because when I go to talk to middle school to high school students, I want a picture that doesn't have a spout on it. I want it to be clear, and I want to have, I mean, be full of some red, delicious Kool-Aid. But when I go to pour, it doesn't come out because there's no spout. So it being on the inside makes no difference if I can't get it out. You can have a whole bunch of knowledge, but if you're not applying it, if you're not sharing it, if you're not pouring it into somebody else, then what are we doing? It reminds me of the Grinch where he said he was going to figure out where hunger and tell no one. That's just evil.
Yeah,
That's just wrong.
Connie, I know we're getting ready to wrap this up. So I want to challenge people to have three things. First of all, and I think this is very critical. First of all, what is it that you want to learn new about yourself? You know, and I think when people sit down long enough and ask themselves, what do I want to learn about myself? Forget about trying to learn about Austin and Prince. I want to learn something about myself. Second thing, ask yourself, what is it I want to change in my life? What do I want to change? Do I want to change? And one thing I was telling my wife, I want to change my approach to certain things in certain situations. So I got to ask myself, what is it I want to change? And then the third thing is what I want to develop. And then I think when you go from this thing, I want to look at what I want to learn about myself. Let me go a little deeper here. I got these 10 domains. So what I want to learn myself mentally. What do I want to learn about myself financially, spiritually, emotional, relational? Because we're called to be in relationship. So what I want to learn about myself. See, the second thing is I ask myself, what is it that I want to change? What is it that I'm willing to change? So I can have be a better version of myself. And the other thing is what I need to develop. You know, because you look at your life and you ask yourself these questions, there's areas that are underdeveloped. And if I ask myself, we're going to go from this childhood trauma until this mature and inner adult. I got to ask those questions like, I need to develop a better temperament. I need to develop a better attitude. I need to develop a better response, not reacting to everything, but a better response system. I need to develop that life is not about me having control because the only person I can control is myself. I want to know how do I manage that? And then how do I stay from being, this passive aggressive person or trying to get my ego or forcing my will on everybody else and forget knowing what my will is? And I'll share this with you. I'll open this up, Lord Mike Austin. So I was saying, how do I know God's will? See, God would never stop me as long as I continue to do his will. So I was looking at David and Goliath because God never told David to fight Goliath, but God never stopped David because I believe as the studying is more, it was God's will for David to fight Goliath. It was God's will for the giant to fall. So God didn't have to stop him because it was already in his will. When Jethro talked to Moses, it was in God's will. When Moses struck that rock the second time, God spoke to him and showed up because it was outside of his will. And I wonder how many times we're doing something and God's trying to tell us because we're outside of his will. Or how many times we're doing something and we don't hear from God. I want to hear from God. God said, no, you're doing my will. I mean, I told Austin this. If my son was outside of my will, doing something outside of my will, I'm going to talk to him. Because this is not my will, son. This is not the will God asked for. I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to bring correction. But as long as he keep doing the will, I don't have to bring correction to him. I don't have to say anything to him because he continued to do the will. And when we learn that, like what I want to learn about myself, what I want to change, and what I want to develop. If I spend quality time, I can go from healing the inner, addressing these childhood traumas and maturing the inner adult. If I'm willing to take that risk of being vulnerable, being transparent, I don't need your approval anymore. I don't need your approval for me to take this journey. I don't need a stamp of approval for you to give me kudos. I'm taking this journey. You coming or you're not? You coming? You're not. You coming? Stay behind. I'm going. You coming? Because I'm leaving. I'm going to do those three things. I'm going to learn some more about myself. I'm going to change the things I need to change, and I'm going to develop. I refuse to continue to come January, February, March 2026 and got the same way of thinking that what I had 20 years ago. I just got older, but I still haven't addressed these things in my life. So I'm grateful to be part of your podcast. You know, I am, always.
Yeah, I know. I was waiting for you to take a breath so I could jump in there. It's like double dutch, where you got to get in when you fit in. But listen, Pastor Austin, uh, we are about to wrap up, and I want you to, to tell those people who would like to, connect with you, follow you, come to your church, those in the Mobile area. How can they get in touch and find out like what it is you have going on?
Street, downtown Mobile, Alabama. Our service time on Sundays at 12 noon. Our Bible study is at 7:30 on Wednesday nights. You can follow us on Facebook, Love Me Anyway Ministries. That's what we do. We're out in the community. We're serving the under served in the community, people without homes, people who are struggling. We're out there 3 Sundays out of the month, passing out hot meals. We give out hygiene items, clothes, shoes, and different other items that people might need. Help people get to appointments and all those type of things. Direct them to the people who have resources that they may need to change their life and impact their lives. And we're also big in the veteran community as well. We do a lot in our veterans community to help our veterans who are struggling, like myself was as a veteran, and then have the right um, resources in place. And also, we deal with our troubled youth in the community as well to redirect their thinking. A lot of our youth out here, we talked about it before, that the father's out of place, and Dr. Dent said that the mothers are there. I think it's like 70% of homes that have single moms and no dad. And so a lot of the kids are not getting reaching their full potential because that dynamic is mentioned. Not to take anything away from the moms at all, but these are elements that we try to come in and help people get back into their right position. So these are the things that we offer. We just out here just trying to be a good witness for our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and help people where we can, and just filling in gaps and helping people, being that helping hand in all of those areas.
And Sakona, he getting ready to finish his first book.
This is my first book. Yes. I'll be like you guys.
You muted, Sakona, you muted, dude.
Okay, all right, well, cool. Hey, listen, well, man, I am so excited for that because I'm telling you, there's nothing like immortalizing your gift, your abilities on paper. Because you really get a chance to speak to folks that you haven't had an opportunity to. So, kudos to you, man. Hats off.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Dent, what you got to close us
Well,
out with? Notice I said close us out because I'm getting hungry.
Yeah. Well, because Austin got to go to his date, so he won't be a headache. Hey, he was talking about you before you came on, Austin. He said, "Where's Austin? I want him to be a headache." I said, "I'm gonna tell him. I'm gonna tell him." So, hey, I'm Dr. Charles Dent. You can also look at dententerprises.inc.com, dententerprisesinc.com. You can find us there. You can find that we have written numerous books, and some of the latest one is Tearing Down Daddy's Altar, Unchained Mind. This one that I really, really love is When a Woman Gives Up Her Heart. I'm talking in that particular book is when a woman gives up her heart to a man who has a heart for another woman. It was written based on Leah giving up her heart to Jacob, who never develop a heart for her. Now, my kids asked me this question, Sakoni. They said, Dr. Dent, whose heart did you break? I said, well, how did they know it was about me? And it is about me, because I was a young guy, didn't know how to deal with it. It was not a sexual thing and everything else. It was about, I didn't know what it meant for a woman to give her heart to a man. I had no clue. I was naive. I was innocent. I had no knowledge of what it takes to take care of a woman's heart. I had no knowledge of it. Zero, zippo, none. And so I wrote that book. I wrote it just to tell her I was sorry. I wrote it because what she did for me at that time was really help me understand what it means when a person gives up their heart. And women end up giving up their heart to men, not knowing where the heart of man is. And then vice versa. Now, men need to find out where the heart of the woman is. But I saw it when my publisher said to me about this, and I can go all day with this. She said, Charles, this is even good for the LGBT community. And I went like, yeah, because women are giving up their heart to other women, don't know where it is, and men are giving up their heart. They don't know where the heart is and the condition of that heart. So that was that book alone has done more for me and other people, because I want to be careful that I want to teach women how to be smart and guard your heart.
All right. So with that being said, I'm going to close out. I actually normally have my standard scissor reel, but I've actually updated it because I'm also seeking to get into colleges and speak to them as well. So I'm going to close out our podcast. I want to thank my guest, Dr. Charles Dent, Pastor Lord Michael Austin. Appreciate them for their time being on the podcast. And we're going to close out with my brand new, and I will say highly impactful, scissor reel. But listen, we'll talk to you soon. Well, my name is Sakoni Prince of SakoniPrince.com, where we make motivation personal, introducing you to yourself. I help people in the area of personal development and leadership development, because I believe that you can't lead others until you learn how to lead yourself. But once you learn how to lead yourself, the next logical step is that you lead other people. Until you know who you are, anything can stop. But once you know who you are, nothing can stop. I'm a motivational speaker, a trainer, and a coach. I do what I do because I believe that people have truly yet to understand their purpose. Once you know who you are, nothing can stop you. But until you know who you are, anything can. So my goal is to really help people to understand their purpose and their calling. And oftentimes they have the answers themselves, but they're not asking the right questions. So I help people to get to that place to where they look at themselves, they step back and they see how they've been a help to those around them and what really drives them. And from that, they really understand the value of it. They learn to value their value and see what value their value brings. Because a lot of people, they have yet to do that. I want you to look at yourself. I want you to think about your limits. I want you can even hug them and embrace them. But then I want you to tell them goodbye. My 10-year-old son, he looks at me and he says, Dad, I'm proud of you. I want you to understand that you are blessed. That you are blessed to be a blessing. That there is somebody looking up to you. They're looking at you. Don't ever forget that. Because if you ever do, you're going to leave them without